Europe is finally emerging from the shadows to reveal what its military mission in Ukraine will entail. Brussels now admits Europe has concrete plans for a multinational military presence in Ukraine after the ceasefire, not just abstract discussions. At the same time, today Ursula von der Leyen's plane landed in Plovdiv, and this is happening against the backdrop of global positioning system jamming. As you know, these aren't two separate events, they form one picture. Europe understands that the war has long gone beyond the front line in Ukraine, and Europe is preparing. Such an iron framework of security, meaning people, infrastructure, standards, and so on. It is precisely to discuss this topic that Donald Trump's meetings with Volodymyr Zelensky and European leaders are scheduled in Paris on September 4. My name is Alexei Pechi. Today is September 1st. Now let's discuss this topic in detail. How are these two seemingly different pieces of news connected to each other? But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like the video. Also subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechi News. The link is in the description of this video. European countries are preparing post-war security guarantees for Ukraine, including deploying troops on its territory. This was stated by the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. And these actions will be supported by the United States, she said in an interview with the Financial Times. And now I will quote her. We have a clear roadmap for deploying an international military force. An agreement was reached at the White House for support from the Americans, and this work is progressing very well. United States President Donald Trump assured us that the American presence will be provided as part of the support program. She says this was made very clear and repeatedly confirmed. Well, although earlier Trump exclusively sent American soldiers to Ukraine, he promised to help ensure Ukraine's security in other ways. United States support may include intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance, command and control assets, as well as air defense systems. If we follow Europe's logic, the point of the future mission is not to send troops into the trenches, but to move complex processes inside Ukraine. This means training and educating Ukrainian soldiers on site, repairing and assembling weapons and equipment, logistics and warehousing. Here in Ukraine, peaceful air cover will first be provided over the western regions and then over the entire country. These include patrols, radars, air defense, electronic warfare and cyber defense units. And so, as they say today, command, intelligence and surveillance with the support of the United States. And this arrangement is convenient for everyone. For Trump, there's less toxicity before Congress and especially the Make America Great Again movement. And for Europeans, there's more control over continental security. In Kyiv, I know the people, understand how things work, and everything is close. And here is Russia. Apparently, I realized that the West absolutely ignored all the whining of Putin, Lavrov, Peskov, Zakharova, and so on. And here I'll remind you that the Kremlin was shouting that no European troops would appear in Ukraine, Russia would not allow it. Such guarantees for Ukraine require Russia's involvement. But as we can see, all these screams from the Kremlin don't stop the process in the West at all. And now Russia has started to act differently, and these actions, highlight the Kremlin's desperation. First, Russian propaganda media today suddenly decided to bring back and show us the fugitive Ukrainian president Yanukovych, who decided to tell all of us how bad the European Union and NATO are and why Ukraine shouldn't work with them on security guarantees. I'm not repeating this nonsense, look it up online if you want. But Yanukovych stated that he personally worked on bringing Ukraine closer to the European Union, but the Europeans, he said, behaved improperly. That's what he says. He also says that Ukraine joining NATO would have led to a civil war. And, it's telling just how bad things are for the Russians in diplomacy that they decided to bring out Yanukovych. Well, as if his arguments mean anything at all. Secondly, Russia began threatening Ursula von der Leyen personally immediately after her statement about a military presence in Ukraine. Navigation was disrupted and the crew switched to backup procedures. That's a dry phrase used in Bulgarian aviation. But what does that mean? Today, the president of the European Commission arrived in Bulgaria, and it turned out that von der Leyen's plane was subjected to suspicious Russian interference with the global positioning system. Officials suspect that electronic navigation systems were jammed while approaching Bulgaria's Plovdiv airport, and the global positioning system stopped working. After circling over the airport for an hour, The pilot decided to land the plane manually using paper charts. European Union governments have reported an increase in cases of global positioning system jamming and spoofing since February 2022, especially in Eastern European and Baltic countries. This was clearly a gangster signal from the bold dictator Putin to Ursula von der Leyen, so that she would be more careful with her words. And it would be strange if the European Union doesn't react to this at all. By 2025, spoofing coordinates and jamming global positioning system feel like scenes from a movie. Continuation, descent time thunderstorm. This is a threat to civil aviation and ground critical infrastructure within the European Union. And that means the future military mission of the European Union is not just a gesture in favor of Ukraine. No, this is an element of Europe's own security. Otherwise, tomorrow even a plane with any European Union Prime Minister may have to fly using only paper maps, with no global positioning system or navigation. And here, European officials and dignitaries suddenly remembered the calls of French President Emmanuel Macron back in 2017 for strategic autonomy from the United States. Let me give you a lengthy quote from one of the European diplomats, as cited by the Financial Times, so you can understand how this sounds behind closed doors. Quote, "There's something to the fact that right now, Americans are actually the ones responsible for most of these issues in Europe." So how will the political mechanics of the European Union's military mission in Ukraine work? Of course, in the European Union there will be one or two countries like that. Hungary, maybe Slovakia. But the coalition format has already been tested for a long time, from Ramstein to the tank coalition. The legal form is an agreement with Ukraine on post-war guarantees and a mission to support security. The parameters are flexible, covering advisors, trainers, and air defense system operators. Each country will decide its own level of involvement in this matter. The red lines are clear, direct combat isn't allowed, but a constant presence is essential. Because a toothless truce is an invitation to revenge, what does all this give Ukraine? The first speed. When training, repairs, and logistics are in the country, this cycle, diagnosis, correction, repair, and return to service, goes down from months to a week. The second is resilience. Air defense and electronic warfare, backed by Europe, stop the enemy from committing minor sabotage while denying responsibility. Third is politics. The presence of Europeans on the ground makes sabotaging the truce politically more costly for Moscow. Yes, these are not NATO troops in the trenches, but it's also not just a paper guarantee. Overall, Europe is late, but still drawing the right lessons. In 2014, they underrated persistence. In 2022, speed. In 2025, presence. Now all of this is coming together into a single framework. And let someone else dare to say the word fatigue. Fatigue is easily cured by engineering, once and for all. Organize everything, ensure safety, set things up as you say, and that's it, no fatigue. Because when the mechanism is fine-tuned, what is there to get tired from? So I'll put an ellipsis here. Write your opinion and conclusions in the comments under this episode. Subscribe to the channel, click the bell, and don't forget to like. That's it for now. Take care. Bye.